All right, Chris, explain the process, what we're doing, what today is.
Okay, today is shipment day, Christmas day. All right, it's Chris from ACI Aquaculture. Today we are going to explain to you what happens from the time the corals are collected till the time they arrive at the ACI, and then what we do afterwards. I hope you enjoy it. We have a pretty decent sized farm. We have 18,500 gallons of water. Probably one of the largest actual working well farms out there. I honestly don't know how big the biggest one is, but maybe in Florida we might be the biggest one.
So why don't you explain to people that might not know, kind of where coral comes from, how it makes its way to the United States, and the difference between maricultured and wild corals.
Okay, corals from Indonesia are collected all over the Indonesian archipelago where they're legally allowed to be collected. There's a lot of green zones, so there's a lot of areas that you can't touch, which is respectful, and I agree with it 100%. The difference between wild and mariculture is, and this was supposed to be the real deal, is mariculture is supposed to be all stock that they have, that they're farming at their farm sites, and then they grow those corals, they fragment those corals into sellable aquaculture pieces. They're also doing now land-based mariculture, which is something that's very new. I think Vincent Chales was the first to get into land-based aquaculture CITES, and now there's other places doing it. So mariculture is a gray area in my opinion. Most of the times it's legit if you get it from the right supply line. But then there's a lot of unscrupulous people out there that are just chopping up wild pieces, sticking them on a plug and calling it mariculture. And if you get an acropora that's a tabling acro and is growing like this, it ain't no mariculture. So you gotta know what you're looking at. And I've been doing this long enough that it's pretty simple to tell the difference between the true mariculture and something that is claimed to be mariculture, but really isn't. I'm gonna get into some Fimbriphilius here, and I have suppliers that I've used that do not float them and they never come in good. They put a piece of styrofoam, they float the coral upside down. This makes the any Euphilia ship better. You can't tell me it doesn't work because I have a supplier that sends me torches all the time to the frog spawns, hammers, branching, and they're never floating, and I have to sit on them even longer than I normally sit on Euphilias as it is, because they just, for whatever reason, they just don't ship as well. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the coral gets to wave and move around and it doesn't ever hit the sides. That's tends to be a problem. So when they're getting wild Indonesian corals from, say, Kupang, or Jakarta gets everything shipping to Jakarta, so it can come from Kupang, come from Sulawesi, come from Makassar, come from Timor. All the different areas of the Indonesian archipelago. My supply line then holds those corals, makes sure that they're healthy, and they get shipped to me. So it's a long process. It's, I can buy cheap, but that's all I would get is cheap. And I choose to buy from suppliers that have the same mindset as I do. They love the animals, and you get what you pay for. Bottom. Underrated coral. Nobody wants it because everybody's afraid. Mycedium.
I love Mycedium.
Mycedium is actually not a horrible coral. People are scared because they see sweepers. You just have to understand your corals. I mean, I got Mycediums right next to site pastures, but most people are like, oh, you can't do that. Yes, you can. What's your flow pattern? Understand your flow pattern, and you can put a coral anywhere you want to if you put it in the proper position. But if you don't know how to if you don't understand how corals send their sweepers out and what triggers them to be on the aggressive side, then yeah, stay away from them. But You don't learn unless you try. And that's the problem. Everybody's afraid of learning nowadays.
Same thing with wall hammers. Wall hammers, one of my favorite
You
coils.
see my wall hammers over here?
Dude, the silver ones are awesome.
They're spectacular.
They're those white ones with the gold stems.
But everybody's afraid of them. I can't sell them because of the internet. The internet says, oh, they don't stay alive.
If you batter them with flow like a torch,
No,
they're probably gonna die.
Well, buy them from a transhipper that doesn't give a shit about the coral either, and yeah, you're gonna lose them. What do we have here?
It looks like kind of like a Porites.
I say it's Porites.
Looks like a really interesting Porites.
Help with one of them? Yeah. So now it's been 15, 16 hours, almost 18 hours after the coils have been tanked. Now you get to see what this stuff looks like after we tank it. It's actually really awesome to see when you have a supplier as good as ours, how awesome the coils look not even 24 hours later. For wall hammers to ship good without getting a lot of damage on them on shipping, my guys float them, and you can see the flesh band going around the coral. Is very good. There's no dents or nicks in this particular piece. Doesn't mean it's perfect when we get them shipped in, but this at least gives them a fighting chance for survival. They get to move around the system, so there's constantly water flowing over top of them, so that if there is any slimy areas or areas where they're really built up, which would cause problems long term, we let them float around like this so that they can start to inflate, pull water into their tissue so that they can remove that slime. And it really makes a lot of difference with all the euphyllias. Problem with a lot of wall hammers is everybody's so afraid of them. They get them in, they get them out. And that makes me sad because there's not an endless supply of these things in the ocean. And if they're not cared for and they're only thought about as $1, then don't do it.
So tell me what you're looking for. If you see something with damage, what do you do with it? Do you really even have any with damage, etc.?
If I see something with damage when I'm putting them down, what I like to do is assess the situation. Is it a major issue, or is it something that will heal on its own? If it's something I think needs some attention to it, there's no other dip in the world that I would use on these things other than iodine. Iodine is a forgotten art when you talk about dipping wands, because iodine is literally been forgotten in all aspects of medical when it comes to us as humans. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to get mercurochrome out and slap mercurochrome on a cut. Well, what was that? That was iodine. Now we use all kinds of other fancy smancy things that are developed by pharmaceutical companies that really don't do the same job that good old iodine does. And that's, I don't know, something I think is important for people. If you have a problem with a coil, it's got damage to it, don't go straight to using antibiotics. It's so funny because iodine isn't it? It's an anesthetic. It's gonna help the coral heal as well as kill bacteria, especially if you know what you're doing when you're doing an iodine dip. That's, I think, one of the biggest travesties to this industry is that nobody pushes iodine anymore, where it's very important. For dipping, it tends to be maybe a little bit more expensive, but again, you get what you pay for, and it's about the animals. It's not about the money, right? Common issue with a symbiotic relationship that is no issues in the wild, obviously, and it's called they're boring clams. These holes are where a boring clam got into the polyp, and it grows along with the coral. And when we cut them down, we have to pull the boring clams out because they're cut in half, of course, and they die. So it would tox out the coral with the ammonia and the breakdown of the dying animal. They're really a pain in the rear end sometimes to get out. As you can see, there's already 2 holes from where I pulled them out, and now we're trying to get the rest of them, which Got to find the hole that they're living in. You can see right through the coral, but that doesn't mean the coral is going to die. The coral will be perfectly fine once you get rid of the clam. But long term, we found that these things will end up being problematic for the animal, for the coral itself. So we like to remove them, and it's a process sometimes. There you go. But there's what they look like. That's part of it, of course. I cut the other part in half. And then here's one that's almost fully intact, which for whatever reason makes them even more difficult to get out. I think they have something that helps them grab a hold so they don't come out. Here we go. Now you got holes in the bottom of your lobo. It's common on Acam pachyceptas. Any of your big solitary or any of your big polyp corals, we find them in Bower Bankies. We find small ones in Lourdes. We find them in pretty much all the corals. Just a matter, I guess there's multiple different species. But that's how you eradicate a boring clam from a lobo. So last week, we got in an awesome Australian coral shipment. And because we like to hold our corals for like a week at least before we put them on the market, we are going to go in here and show you the corals that came in a week ago from Australia. We'll take a look. This is our what you see is what you get tank. It's 2 100-gallon vats and a low boy. And in these two aquariums, we have some absolutely amazing corals. There's a bunch of scullies, a bunch of lobos, just a bunch of stuff that's been sitting here for more than a week that we are happy to put up for sale in the market so we can put it back in a box and ship it to you.
So why do you wait a week between receiving it and putting it in here?
We wait a week because we want to give the animals a fighting chance to survive in captivity, and we want our customers to be able to sell them immediately when they get them in. If we were to do like a transshipper does, a lot of those stores can't even sell those corals immediately because they just aren't healthy enough. The biggest thing we have to keep for 1 week is our euphyllias. We also like to keep the Homophilia australis and a lot of the Lobophilias because they have such sharp spiky septus. They tend to not ship as good. So if we took pictures of them, 2-3 days later, you still see that. I want the corals to look fat, happy, and healthy. So that way, customers are really prone to be buying them. And we've done it the old way. The old way we used to do it was we get the corals in, we take the pictures, and a lot of the stuff didn't sell the first week anyhow. So what's the difference whether we hold them for a week and then photograph them once, or we photograph them twice? It's a lot less work though that way. So now that you've seen Salem beacon out on all the corals that were coming in with the constant stops and starts with this unpack, which is an absolute blast. I love seeing people here don't get to see what it's like to see a coral shipment arrive. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you have questions, comment